Alright, welcome back to some more Monoblack control with Gonti, Lord of Luxury. I'm slowly making upgrades to the deck and getting it to the point where I can actually start trying to play this in the league events. This time around I made some pretty significant changes with the Abyss, Chrome Mox, No Mercy, and Bitter Blossom. Together slightly more money than I've put into the deck previously, but they're all very, very powerful cards. I'm certainly happy to have included them. And cut some of the more questionable or higher end cards, such as Lash Writhe, Dread Return, Shieldred, and I believe Nile Spellbomb. So with that, the deck is a little bit more smoothed out, a little bit more impactful. The Abyss is a pretty powerful lock piece, alongside some things like Bitter Blossom to protect me from it, or non-creature based win conditions such that I don't really care about it. No Mercy, also very anti-creature. I find that I'm not necessarily losing to creatures, more so than card advantage, but what I am finding is that I will be threatened by creatures to the point where I have to deal with them rather than progress my own board state or deal with my opponent's card advantage, and this seems like a better way to do that. So with that, I've played some tournament practice games today, 4 in total, and we'll go through them and maybe get a look at how the tournament practice room differs from the casual / for fun room as I progress towards starting to play leagues. Alright, so we have our first game against Nissa Vastwoodseer. Very well-known, popular mono-green deck, tends to go big, tends to be Eldrazi focused, and it's certainly very powerful and scary. I have a hand of Swamp, Read the Bones, Charcoal Diamond, Corrupt, Inquisition, Arena, and Chrome Mox. Very keepable thanks to the Chrome Mox. I can actually play a turn 1 Charcoal Diamond. I have a choice between that and turn 1 Inquisition. My opponent's going first here. They go ahead and cast a turn 1 Arbor Elf, which suggests to me that they'll probably play Nissa turn 2. That's a pretty standard play pattern for this deck, which means that I'm more or less okay to skip the Inquisition for this turn and just develop. So I will play out the Chrome Mox, exiling Corrupt since that's rather slow in this hand right now. Play the Swamp, and just play the Charcoal Diamond. This lets me potentially cast Arena and Inquisition next turn if I draw a land. Otherwise I can try to Read the Bones to hit a land, then Inquisition after that. My opponent, as expected, goes ahead and plays Nissa Vastwoodseer. Whereas I don't draw a land, so I have to have my plan B of casting Read the Bones. Finding Dance of the Dead Polluted Delta. Dance of the Dead's not very good right now, so I'll take the Delta. And that allows me to cast Inquisition this turn, so that was pretty much as good as I could hope for without drawing a land immediately. Here I find Lignify, Plowonder, Oracle of Moldiah, and 3 lands. Plowonder is certainly annoying, but thanks to my artifact mana, I'm slightly far enough ahead that it doesn't hurt me too badly. Let's pop open that revealed tab here. So my opponent's, of course, going to just play Oracle here. And they find a land off the top and play it, and attack in for 2. So I have a number of choices now. Thankfully, because of how my mana works out, I can actually go ahead and cast both Victim of the Night and Phyrexian Arena. I definitely want them to get this Oracle off the board, because as you can see, they have 3 lands in their hand, and Nissa's Pilgrimage on top, so they'll be accelerating twice as quickly with that out. So I'm definitely going to go ahead and Victim of the Night and Phyrex. Oh, I'm sorry. That's backwards. I actually Damnation here, and I think the reason I do that is to force them to spend their whole next turn playing Plowunder. Yeah, I'm not sure if that was the right choice, but that seems fine. It's still a 3 for 1. They're just going to go ahead and play Plowunder, which is pretty much as expected, and happily does allow me to play either Phyrexian Arena or Hypnotic Spectre. Here I choose Hypnotic Spectre, because I want to start just getting these cards out of their hand. It's going to sort of deal with Nissa if she flips, whereas Phyrexian Arena is just going to draw me a card which might not deal with Nissa, might not deal with the cards in their hand. This seems like a better way to go. It also allows me to next turn play Phyrexian Arena to keep up Victim of the Night, potentially, which will kill Nissa when she tries to flip. and they play Sylvan Library, which is a little bit annoying, but it makes me happy that I played the Hypnotic Spectre, because it's going to force them to keep drawing cards and keep taking damage if they want to actually keep cards in their hand. I do thankfully draw a land, which lets me, as I said, deploy both Phyrexian Arena and keep up Victim of the Night. And at this point I'm feeling relatively comfortable in this game. I know Sylvan Library is a big danger for me right now, but I do have a source of card advantage. I've developed my mana through a Plow Under, and I hopefully have the removal to kill Nissa to keep them off tempo long enough for me to get back in this game. They, again as expected, go ahead and cast Nissa, search the land, attempt to flip, I'll Victim in response. Unfortunately, I only draw mana this turn, so it makes sense to just cast Gonti and see what I can get. In this case, I get Reclamation Sage. The other options were Crucible of Worlds and Runamap Excavator, the creature Crucible of the Worlds. While I do have Polluted Delta in my graveyard, getting more mana every turn doesn't really do necessarily that much for me. Whereas if I can kill the Sylvan Library, it takes them off their card advantage and hopefully is a better long-term plan. Now I make a slight mistake here, in that I cast Gonti pre-combat. I really should have cast Gonti post-combat because Hypnotic Spectre forces them to use cards in their hand, which might affect what I want to do here. In this case, they can pop the Worldly Tutor and save it from Hypnotic Spectre while saving the card they get from it from Gonti. So I certainly made a misplay there. I really have to learn to do things post-combat more than I do now. So hit the land out of their hand. I know that they now have Worldbreaker in their hand because they tutored for that, and of course they'll get rid of the arena, leaving me without a source of card advantage. I draw Hero's Downfall, and I actually am going to use it here. I know that they can get Worldbreaker back, but if I kill Sylvan Library, knock the card out of their hand with Hypnotic Spectre, it leaves them without many cards left, and slowly losing mana to sacrificing things for Worldbreaker. So this seems like a worthwhile play for me. They are going to get to flip Nissa, but considering I have multiple attackers on board, they kind of have to send out a Shaya here. Which is pretty much fine with me because I can attack in with all three, 2 at Nissa, 1 at my opponent. And unfortunately, I guess this doesn't really matter that much. So they crop rotation to keep it out from the Hypnotic Spectre and to get a colorless source, which lets them bring back Worldbreaker this turn, which they otherwise would not be able to do. Meanwhile, Nissa will die, Reclamation Siege will die, and I'll get no cards in their hand. So that was pretty much a wash as far as turns go, but I drew another land. So I can't really progress my board state beyond that. And of course my opponent recasts Worldbreaker. Getting rid of Deserted Temple, certainly the right choice. All these other lands are pretty much just basics, including the artifacts. And they'll crash in with a Shaya. Now of course I can keep attacking in with just Gonti. They won't block it since I can recast it and get more card advantage that way. But instead I'm actually going to, once again, Murderous Cut this Worldbreaker, both to get in the 2 damage, dodging the reach, get the card out of their hand, force them to sacrifice more lands. It also forces me to lose mana because they're casting it and destroying my mana base every time, but they're losing a mana for me to lose a mana, and they're spending their entire turn doing that. So my hope is that I can gain enough tempo by doing this to get back in this game and actually close it out, since I'm relatively close to actually killing them. So with that, Hypnotic Spectre discards a Burgeoning, and they bring back Worldbreaker as I would have expected. Naturally, still with the mana to cast it. Unfortunately, they actually have the mana to cast Nature's Lore and Worldbreaker in one turn, so they have 1 more land to sack later. They destroy a swamp. Also, certainly better than these artifacts in the Monoblack deck, since I have Swamp's Matter cards such as Cryptcast, which I just now draw. Now, Cryptcast is interesting because I can potentially extort them out of the game if I can keep attacking it with Gonti, and it looks like they're going to keep letting that happen. So I'm going to play Cryptcast and hope to draw some sort of draw spell, some sort of burn spell, anything to actually close out this game. My opponent, of course, recasts Nissa, the Phyrexian Arena in the command zone, flipping her immediately and plussing. I believe this was Expedition Map, and they're just going to pass back. I draw another swamp, attacking with just Gonti, since that's the only thing that they might not block. They do choose to block it here, which lets me recast it this turn, with Extort thanks to Cryptcast. So they lose 1 less life than they would have if they didn't block it, but I get to recast Gonti, finding Runamap Excavator. Not necessarily fantastic, but I get to cast that, extort, and have the Polluted Delta in my graveyard for the future. So it's at least one more damage thanks to Cryptcast. They make a new Ashaya and Cultivate. Doesn't really affect me much. They break the Expedition map, finding a Dryad Arbor, which is kind of annoying because now this can block Gonti, and it won't kill Gonti, so I don't get any card advantage from it. So now I'm just attacking them to waste the turn, essentially, and I draw another land. They Wood Elves, finding more forests, and again, this is another blocker for Gonti that doesn't kill Gonti. And I really, really need Gonti dead here because that's what gets me 2 more Extort triggers. But again, I draw more lands despite searching with Polluted Delta, attack in, Wood Elves chumps again. And now they have Garruk to start making Beast tokens to make it even more impossible for me to attack him with the rest of the team. They play Crucible, which now lets them recur Dryad Arbor every turn, which lets them block Gonti sort of forever. I draw Cabal Ritual, kind of nothing, but it's at least 1 damage as far as burn goes, thanks to Cryptcast. Dryad Arbor dies once more, and now they start attacking again. And I really don't think that I can reasonably block here. Runamap Excavator is getting me back the land every turn, which is deck thinning, which does actually matter at this stage of the game. Hypnotic Spectre, I need to get in flying damage if I can somehow kill his World Breaker, and Cryptcast is my win condition, thanks to the burn. So I'm not going to block that 7 damage, I'm going to go to 13, and they're going to replay Dryad Arbor and play Primeval Titan, and this makes my board state almost unwinnable, I think. They're going to get Eye of Ugin and Eldrazi Temple, as this deck so often does. And now I really need to draw something this exact turn. Instead, I draw a Ritual, which is certainly not going to do it against this board. And while I can burn them for 2, it will not actually make a difference here. Attacking in with all my creatures wouldn't help. Obviously, they block everything, blocking Gonti with Dryad Arbor. So I'm more or less helpless to the massive amount of damage that they're going to pour in this turn. Thanks to... Yeah, I think it actually glitched out here. What actually happens here is that they... Yeah, this is a glitch. What actually happens here is that they tutor for and cast Ulamog, the new Ulamog, to exile both Cryptcast and Runamap Excavator. That's what I'm responding to when I cast off the 2 rituals to burn them, and then they just attack in, and it's very clearly game over. So, MTGO lasted almost to the end there. It was a very, very close game. If both of these had been spells, I obviously would have won. If any of them had been draw spells, I could have gotten there. If any of them had been kill spells for Gonti, I could have gotten enough Cryptcast triggers to win the game. So not quite there, but it's against one of the better decks in the format, so I'm not too unhappy about how close I got. Let's move on to the next game. Alright, well, as it turns out, the latter 2 games that I wanted to show, both against Sidar and Silas, glitch out fairly early thanks to what appears to be a replay bug involving Cabal Therapy. So we don't really get to see those. I did win both those games, although they were pretty close thanks to a number of misplays on my part. The second game is against Gaddock Teague, and I will show that one. Alright, so here we have what looks on the surface to be a pretty keepable hand. I have 2 lands, Pack Rat, and Live Fast if I hit that 3rd land, but I actually don't consider this keepable against Gaddock Teague. Grand Dynamo is basically a blank, Yawgmoth's Will is basically a blank this early, as is Emrakul. Gaddock Teague is almost always going to be some form of Hate Bears thing. It's going to be fairly aggressive, it's going to be tempo-based, and this hand just does not have the tempo. If I miss my 3rd land, I won't be able to Live Fast, and I'll kind of just be sitting here on a 1-1 Pack Rat. So I throw this back and hope to get a better 6, which I don't actually get. I get a hand of 6 non-land cards. So I have to mulligan again, and find Bitter Blossom, Land, Lethal Vapors, Read the Bones. And this is, I think, significantly better than my first hand. Bitter Blossom being a better threat than Pack Rat, Read the Bones being a better card than Live Fast, and Lethal Vapors being a better card if I can remove Gaddock Teague to play at 4. So I'm certainly going to keep this and bottom deck the Coercive Portal, similar to Grand Dynamo. I'm not going to be able to cast it before they cast Gaddock Teague, and start off this game with a Swamp. My opponent goes ahead and plays a basic and passes, which lets me play Swamp Bitter Blossom, thankfully drawing Victim of the Night, which is fantastic against the Hate Bears deck. They play Watch Wolf, which shows that they're hoping to be kind of aggressive. No other real reason to play a 3/3 for 2, and maybe not even then, when there are certainly better 2-mana cards they could be playing in its place. I assume they're also playing Voice of Resurgence and Fleeceman Lion, otherwise this choice makes no sense. Anyway, I'm going to get a Bitter Blossom token and go ahead and Read the Bones, which finds me 2 lands, one of which I'll keep, which lets me get to Gonti, and the other card that I draw will be Glint Sleeve Siphoner. They play Corrosive Verge into Gaddock Teeg, perfectly fine by me, and they attack with Watchwolf. I'm not going to block here. You might think that I'd be trying to conserve my life total, especially with Bitter Blossom up, but I'm actually trying to race here. This is a Hate Bears deck, but I have enough removal that I think I can hold them off, and if they don't have removal for Bitter Blossom, it could just carry the game. Blocking the Watchwolf would prevent 3 damage, but it would also prevent damage from my opponent equal to the number of turns this fairy would have stayed around, which I anticipate being more than 3. So if I'm trying to race, I want to not block here. That said, I just go ahead and cast Gonti, since I can easily block Watchwolf with that without really losing any tempo. I find Cultivate, as well as some card that's not good for me. My opponent goes ahead and cracks Corrosive Verge, floating 1 mana for some reason. I suspect that my opponent's kind of new to their deck. They do this a couple times and overpay for spells and abilities. But they attack him with Watchwolf. I'm perfectly happy to trade that for Gonti. I don't expect them to block Gonti with Gaddock Teeg necessarily, but Gonti's better when I can recast it, basically. So with that, I can Cultivate and play a 2-mana spell, which in this case will be Glint Sleeve Siphoner. Gaddock Teeg isn't too scary for me right now. There's only 1 spell that it's preventing me from casting, and I don't necessarily want that with Bitter Blossom out. So I will attack with fairies and pass. I can always block with my fairies if anything goes wrong, such as if they play Sword of Body and Mind. Now, I don't really think this is one of the better swords, especially not against me, since I do have Yawgmoth spell in my deck. It could backfire pretty horribly, but I don't want them to get more bodies. I don't really want to be threatened by damage with Bitter Blossom up, so I will chump block this and just hope to kill it next turn. Okay, here I could have cast Gonti here. I'm not sure why I didn't. I think I was too focused on the Grasp of Darkness, but regardless, they play Felidar Sovereign, which kind of tips me off that this maybe isn't a tournament practice deck. There's really no reason to play this in the competitive metagame. They don't even really have life gain that we've seen so far, and obviously the game started at 30, so it's much worse than it is in multiplayer. Regardless, they play that out, and I'm just going to kill both of these things with Grasp and Victim of the Night, just to keep the pressure on and keep them from getting life from the lifelink. Draw a card from Glint Sleeve Siphoner, and it is the Abyss, which will be very nice for me later on. I'm going to play Gonti, and they path Gonti in response. Guys, never, ever, ever path Gonti, especially not in response to me getting your card. It makes no sense. I'm just going to recast them. You've given me half the extra mana that I need to do so, and it doesn't do anything. If anything, my opponent should have pathed Glint Sleeve Siphoner, since that gets more advantage by sticking around, whereas Gonti gets more advantage by dying. I continually don't understand why players do this, and it really bothers me much more than it should. Anyway, I take the Naturalize. They have a sword. It could be relevant later. Dauntless Escort isn't that fantastic when my plan involves the Abyss. And my opponent plays Story Circle, hoping to apparently fog all my damage, as well as Lean and Abunus to protect the Sword of Body and Mind. I'm not really necessarily caring that much about Lean and Abunus, since I'm going to be casting the Abyss right now, which will prevent my opponent from actually gaining any creatures to meaningfully equip this to. But regardless, it does prevent the protection from Sword of Body and Mind if I should need to naturalize it later, but right now I'm fully expected to naturalize the Story Circle. Opponent plays Gaddock Teeg. For some reason, it's just going to die to the Abyss if it rolls around to their turn. They obviously keep 3 mana open to Fog rather than equipping the sword, but I'm not sure why they played Gaddock Teeg in the first place. Regardless, I'm going to naturalize the Story Circle. End step, so they don't feel the need to cast spells now that they don't need to save white mana, and they concede there. They'll be taking 7 damage next turn, which will take them to 5. I'll lose one of the new fairies to the Abyss, but I'm keeping parity on that, so they will be dead the turn afterwards, given a lack of answer. And I can, of course, next turn go ahead and Dark Petition for whatever is going to close out this game. So we saw a couple games from the tournament practice section. The first one was very, very good, and I think very close as well. The second one, not so much. It was pretty one-sided. The third and fourth game, which as I said, glitched out, were very close. Were more so because of my misplays than because of matchups, I think. My opponent was playing some cards that I am not too familiar with, Sidar of Khanda and Silas Wren, and I made some mistakes in regards to those, but I did pull out the victory both times against the same player, and that went pretty well. So, thoughts on Tournament Room so far? Slightly better competition than in Just for Fun Room, and a lot less complaining. As I make this deck better, you get more and more people saying your deck is no fun. It's just removal and interaction, and I don't really know what they wanted, because I consider removal and interaction a pretty important part of the game, but whatever. I might be going in the tournament practice room more, though it is less populated than the other rooms. You can still get matches in a fairly reasonable time scale as long as you're on in a reasonable time of the day, I think. So that's all I have. Have a good night.